you again on this issue of Section 57. In light of, I know that the Premier of Bermuda has made a few comments over the last couple of days concerning this whole process and how he feels from the government's perspective, where things are kind of like going kind of like off the tracks, or why he thinks we can't get to reach a resolution. So how did we get here today? I think it's important for us to at least clarify some things for the general public. And this is from a period of just to add clarity to how we got here today. And I want you just to consider that the bill that was passed in the House of Assembly on December 11th, and later passed in the Senate in January, that said it would become law as of June 1. Consider the fact that had the BIU and the BPSU not had their joint press conference on December 10th, the day before the bill went to the House of Assembly, the bill would have become law. And the bill that would have become law without the BIU and the BPSU joint press conference would have meant that non-union members would be able to initiate a ballot for decertification. And that's simply short below us on the public, because the government is saying that they're for labor. The government is saying they are for labor. How does a labor government take a bill to the House of Assembly, amended from the UBP's version in 1998, that says as of June 1, a non-union member will be able to initiate a ballot for decertification, because that's what the bill said. And that's what urged the BPSU and the BIU to have that joint press conference on December the 10th. And for whatever reason, everything is being lost now. Oh, well, the union don't want to agree to that. The union don't want to agree to y'all. We're not pretty tough dialogue. Can you imagine what the space that the unions would be in now had we not had that joint press conference? You would have had a combination of, it could have been, it says 35% works in the bar union, you could have 20% union, 50% non-union, initiating a ballot for decertification. You could have all non-union members initiating a ballot for decertification had we not stepped in and had that joint press conference on December the 10th. So it is a bit disingenuous for the government to say that the BIU don't understand what's going on there, and that Section 57 is no change from the way it was back in 2000 when the PRP government finally made the 1998 Act law. I will continue to say that that was 2000. The PRP government now had a chance to make it right. You got a bill that was passed by the UP government, UP government back in 1998. You have a PRP government in 2000 that made some minor amendments to the act, or they ratified that the way it was. But in 2015, when all the LAC got together to talk about the consolidation of all the acts, that was one of the things the union was focused on. So honestly, how the government today can now lay blame, if that's not the correct word, lay blame at the PLP government's feet for 2000 for not doing, like Spikey said, doing the right thing. Well, the PLP government of 2021 also missed that chance or an opportunity to do the right thing. That bill in 1998 was created by the United Bermuda Party to basically look at decertification, a decertification process as relates to unions, to weaken labor's position in the workplace. The UBP government. So why would a labor government not in 2021 not even be willing to look at the proposed changes that labor is making that are very fair and reasonable? Fair and reasonable, based on the proposal that the amendments that we gave to the minister. And just to be clear, so you know exactly what we're speaking about, we asked the minister to consider in paragraph 57.1, 57.3, 5, and 57.8 to include the words "who are members of the union in good standing." who are members of the union in good standing. Those words are almost identical to section 41 of the current act that clearly states where a union claims to have 35% or more workers in the proposed bargaining unit, listen to these words, as members in good standing. We actually took almost word for word out of section 41 and want to put the words in, similar words in section 57, and the government saying, well, we can't do that. Why? We believe we're taking away the rights of non-union members, and the government is trying to be fair and reasonable to the older workers, which includes union members and non-union members. Let's just be clear. The non-union members they are trying to protect are the non-union members that didn't want the union in the first place, and they certainly don't want the government to be the government. So we can't understand why the government is kind of like still bent on taking care of those workers, but we don't want them to be the government. To continue on, we think that it's this process where the premier makes the announcement or makes the statement that the minister had a conversation with the unions on December 11th about guidelines, coming up with guidelines for us to look at as relates to the ballot for BIU, as relates to section 57. Had the Minister of Labor gotten back to the unions like he promised, there will be absolutely no need for guidelines or regulations. Let me just repeat that. Had the Minister of Labor got back to the unions, there will be no need for us to now look at guidelines or regulations. But because the minister failed, his failure to get back to the unions has now put us in the space that we're in now, where the government is saying he doesn't understand why the union can't be sitting on and have a conversation about these guidelines and regulations that he thinks will give us what we're looking for. Our legal opinion has told us those guidelines and regulations are not going to be strong enough. That's what we've been told. Now, whether or not the government's legal opinion and our legal opinion, do we get their legal opinion? The words that were acted for are in section 41 of the act, so just put similar words in section 57. We don't see what the big issue here is. So the government is saying that the unions don't understand and were misleading according to the deputy premier, the president of the BIU, and the general counsel is misleading our members. Well, who's misleading who? This was put out by the PLP. Bullet point number 1 clearly states, only union workers can trigger a vote, can trigger a decertification vote. That's what they're saying. Now, what they would have been saying had that bill been passed about the unions objected. What they would have been saying, because the unions blocked that. And the reason why the unions blocked it, because the minister's email to the BPSU general president and the president of the BIU, as per our conversation, Mr. President, I will agree to amend clause 57.1 of the bill by deleting the words, do not, or. There's 3 words in section 57.1 where a non-union member can initiate a ballot for decertification, or non-union workers can initiate a ballot for decertification. So the minister went to the House on December 11th while the bill was being discussed on the House Assembly floor and made an amendment to section 51 because the unions objected to it. And somehow or other, all this is being lost. Just fail to accept the regulations. We've had a pandemic in this country and the rest of the world for the better part of probably 16, 18 months. You've seen the government go to the House, make regulations because of the protocols, change this, change that, change the other. What's so difficult about making an amendment to section 57 of the Act? The government is behaving like there's never been a situation where an amendment had to be made to a bill. Those minor amendments that you're asking for are very fair and very reasonable. The government is saying that based on the information from the United States, based on the information from Canada, and based on what the ILO is saying, this process that they've done is the correct process. As we told the minister, as we told the premier, The United States and Canada has some of the worst labor laws in the world. Why would you even go and marry a male? Section 57 as relates to cancellation of certification of union under the laws. And then they mentioned section, of course they mentioned the International Labour Organization, ILO. It's interesting because what does the ILO say about decertification? I can tell you, if you go look at the ILO, it's probably going to talk about a worker in a bargain has a right to participate in that decertification. But that worker is paying 100% to the charity or wherever they're paying, that's why they're getting the vote. This process, we're talking about a non-union member paying a service fee of 50% and having no right to vote in decertification. I can tell you the ILO would not agree to that. Bermuda now has a carve-out, so maybe what you want to do is say, yeah, okay, anybody who's contributing 100% to the union as a non-union member gets the right to vote in the ballot for decertification, but any worker in the bargaining who's contributing 50% will not get a right to vote. That's the main issue. The other main issue is that the Premier talks about these guidelines and regulations. Even if he came up with guidelines and regulations, let's just say he was able to get us to agree. The problem that you're going to have, we've got a legal opinion, but that's that part about the non-union member that's paying 50%, it's still got to be put in the regulation. Because the BIU will never agree that a worker in a bargain who's paying 50% should get a right to vote in a ballot for decertification. We understand, if somebody's giving you 100% contribution, you can't deny them the right to vote. Well, no, we accept that. And let's just be clear. And this is from the minister, the Honorable Jason Haley, to Mr. Thomas and myself, and I think I gave the media a copy of this a month or so ago. I can further commit to ensuring that the labor relations structure provides guidance on the composition of the bargaining for decertification. This will allow us to come to a common understanding on the entitlement of a vote for workers who pay full agency shop contributions to the union. And look what it goes on to say. And whether members who pay a service contribution of 50% will be prohibited from participating. And the last sentence is there's a commitment to have dialogue to resolve these issues prior to the date of the effect of June 1st, 2021. So let's just think about all those people on social media who's talking about the BIU, about rather the BIU, but is the minister telling the truth? No, I don't be a minister telling the truth. Do you think the union is telling the truth? No, the union is not telling the truth. Well, why would the union take a position of lying, telling a lie, at the risk of our reputation? Our reputation meaning 75 years of representing organized labor. Why would we do something like that? Everything that is in front of us is all email or letter that went out based on everything that we've been discussing. So where we stand is on a solid foundation. So it's very disingenuous for me to say, well, I don't believe the union. So you don't believe an email that we got from the minister? I just read it. It's his words. Not my words. These were the words to Mel Thomas, president of the DPSU, and to myself as president of the BIU. Given a commitment that people pay 100%, got that. But the 50%, we're going to have a conversation to see whether or not they're going to be able to vote. And the unions never agreed with the minister that those persons who are paying 50% are going to get a right to vote in decertification. So for the Premier to say that further cover up the situation of the minister not getting back to the unions, he says, well, the minister had dialogue with the unions, number of meetings. So if what the Premier is saying is true, why was it a need for the BIU and BPSU? Why was the need for us to have an urgent press conference on December the 10th, the day before the bill went to the House of Assembly? Why would we need to meet the member? Why would we be able to have that urgent press conference to do what? Just to be heard, to be in front of the cameras and lie to the people of Bermuda? The government has to accept the fact that the Minister of Labor dropped the ball on this issue. Then now got back to the unions, now we're having conversations about guidelines. regulations and all this because of his failure. And until the government admits that, you can't begin to heal the process until you admit somebody does something wrong. I think I've covered everything I need to cover. I'll entertain any questions that you might have.
Good afternoon, Mr. Herbert.
Sure.
What do you think the BOP justification is for not making any amendments to Section 57 of the Labor Trade Union and Consolidations Act?
Well, I believe that the government is saying that we had this law that was passed by the United Bermuda Party government in 1998. It did not really become law until 2000, and I believe the Premier is saying, I think, Dame Lewis Bond Evans, she was basically the AG, and because the PLB government failed to get this done, it's actually putting all the blame on them. That's my definition. All the blame on them meaning they had a chance to make it right, but they didn't. We have a PLB government in 2021 who can make it right, and they refuse to make it right. So the world has changed from 1998 so much. Rather it's the way how we communicate, rather social media, you name it, all those changes have taken place in 1998. But the PLB government is saying what they done in 1998, why not change it, why leave the exact same in 2021? And you know why the UBP done it. You know why they done it. So you would have thought the Labour government say, yeah, guess what? You know that? One are going to be able to reverse that without even taking away the rights as the deputy says, as the Premier said, we are taking away the rights of workers. We are the union. The BIU is taking away the rights of workers. But let's not forget that. The BIU is taking away the rights of workers. We have the government saying that everybody should vote in a ballot for decertification. That means that a non-union member now has the right to take away my right to belong to a union. This is now, they are now attacking my constitutional right to belong to a union. And that's what the Constitution, Section 10 says, a right to belong to a trade union. So you're not telling me that those workers in the body, could take away my constitutional right to belong to a union. And thinking that the BIU is basically taking away the rights of workers. I think it's just the opposite. It is just the opposite. Why? You got workers in that bargain who never went to union in the first place. You got workers in that bargain that never went to government to be the government in the first place. But yet the BIU is being accused of taking rights away from workers. Next question.
Mr. President,
Sure.
interviewing the Premier this week, it seemed he was under the impression that some of the information that you have been repeating publicly may not be factually correct, and therefore he's indicated he is willing to go back to the table to sit down with the union, the BIU, to perhaps go over it so that you can better understand how it benefits labor workers. What are the chances of such a meeting taking place?
Well, first of all, the chances of a meeting taking place, from our perspective, if the government called us within the hour, could you come down and have a meeting with us? If I can arrange a team to go down to the meeting, I'll do it. And the BIU has always been right there. We are prepared to meet the government at any point in time to discuss this issue. But I think the challenge that we're going to continue to have is that when we talk about the misinformation that's going out there to our members, I'm not sure why he thinks it's misinformation, because, and I think I heard him explain it this way, that the two unions had this press conference, and then we had the conversation with the Premier and the Minister and the Manager of Workforce Development on the 19th of May. And then on the 21st of May, the BPSU put out a press statement, which was a Friday. And on the 24th of May, the Minister and the BPSU had a meeting, and they agreed. And what I heard him say is that after the Minister was able to explain to the BPSU, they were able to come on the same page as the Minister. Well, first of all, the BPSU has their reasons why they did what they did. They said they checked, and I think I saw something, they had checked with the ILO. Here's what the ILO is saying. I want the BPSU now to go back and check the ILO and see what they say about 50% service fee as to whether or not that person gets a right to vote in a ballot for decertification. Because I can tell you, I need that clarified. And if that is the case, what the ILO is saying, will the BIU now sit down, have a look at it? Let me just say this to you. If something is happening in another jurisdiction, it really don't make it right just because it's being done. Any law that has been passed, if it's an unjust law, the people have the right to challenge that law. So whilst I understand the government saying that they think they're gonna be able to convince us as to what they're saying is true, the minor amendments that I just read to you and using some of the same languages in the act now, what's the issue with that? Why is it we're gonna look at the government's position and not gonna look at our position? Why? Our position is more fair and reasonable than that position. We are talking about workers in a barn unit who never wanted the union in the first place. And being saying they should be entitled to say whether they want the union or they don't want. We already don't want the union. Why? They voted against us. I can't, Mr. Trotter, I can't explain it to you any better than that. I just think that whilst the government has its view on this whole question of guidelines and regulations, and they think they're going to be strong enough, our legal representatives tell us they're not going to be strong enough. They are not.
If this dispute is not resolved,
Yes.
is there a chance we could see the BIU take this to court?
Let me say, I think that it's a possibility. I'm not saying we're going to rule that out. I think that we'll look at all the options going forward. I think that what you've seen from the members to the media was that as of the 13th of September, we are going to have weekly protests. We're also going to be looking at circulating a petition and ask as many Bermudians as we can, get them to sign that petition, and then we'll hand it to the government. We don't want, BIU doesn't want to go down this road. All we want the government to do is recognize that 1998 has come and gone. 2000 has come and gone. The government passed the bill on December the 11th, 2020, that has come and gone. We're now trying to come around the table and find a reasonable resolution to what is in front of us. The government's gonna have to move from its position, the BIU is gonna have to move from its position in order for us to have common ground. If the government's saying the only way we can resolve this, the BIU's gotta come all the way over to us. And the BIU is saying, but the government's gotta come all the way over to us. Well, all the way over to us to come to the BIU, we already moved from here back there. Why? Because we're giving a worker in a bargaining unit who's not a member, who's contributing 100%, we're giving them a right to vote. We're giving them a right to vote. That was not the case in 1998. That was not the case up until June 6, 2021. It was only June 7th, after the Premier and the Minister left the BIU for 3 hours, talking to our General Counsel, that we decided, you know what? Because it's now mandatory as of June 1, we now need to give that worker in the bargaining who's giving us 100% contribution a right to vote. And the General Counsel agreed. Provided that, as I said to the meeting before, we need to look at section 57.6. Instead of a simple majority now, that number needs to be somewhere around 75%. That gives the union and the protection that they need for allowing non-union member being able to participate in a ballot for decertification.
Thank you.
Sure.
Ms. Fuller, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Just to clarify, the Act in its draft form,
Yes.
Initially it said that non-unionised workers could actually instigate a decertification.
Well, trigger, I think the word the minister uses is trigger a ballot for decertification.
Right. And then you met with the government on that issue, or not on that issue specifically, but at a meeting with government, government made an amendment to that so that they couldn't instigate.
Mm-hmm.
So that suggests some compromise on the part of government, wouldn't you agree?
First of all, why do we consider the compromise? That was never in the original act. That wasn't in the original act. That was created by the minister. And it could have been created by the minister, whether it was Minister, I think might have been Minister Levy, could have been Levy Fogo, I think it was Minister Haven, and it could be the technical staff who was recommending that minister, there has to be a case, I think this for the Premier and the government is, 35% of the workers in the bargaining can initiate a ballot for decertification. Now, what does that mean? There's 100 members in the bargaining unit, 35%, 60 are BIU members, 40 are not BIU, not members. What the government is saying is that 35% is issued to labor force, that 35% includes the entire bargaining unit. That's why the government said, I guess that's why the bill was good, to say that a non-union member can initiate a ballot for decertification. Let's just be clear. When we had the meeting with the Minister of Labor on December the 11th, in his office at 12:30. This is an email from Sister Lauren Bell from the BPSU, and this is to J. Hayward, J.P. Hayward, at gov.bm, and the subject is BPSU BIU Trade Union Labor Relations Consolidated Bill 2021 Proposed Amendments. Good day, Minister. On behalf of the BPSU and the BIU, please find attached the union's proposed amendments to Section 57.1 and Section 57.8 of the Trade Union Labor Relations Consolidated Bill of 2020 for your consideration. As agreed, today's meeting will be at 12:30 in your office with the two representatives from each union present in solidarity. Because on the back of this, we have exactly what the amendment, Section 57, is going to look like. The proposed amendment from the government, and the proposed amendment from the BPSU and the BIU. So it was at that meeting, as soon as the minister walked in the room, he said it. He said to the unions, I accept the fact, what you said yesterday in the press conference, I accept the fact that a non-union member should not be able to initiate a ballot for decertification. And as I said earlier, so had we not had the joint press conference, that means that would have been passed. That would have been passed.
Which demonstrates that government was willing to meet you halfway.
No. We actually made them meet us halfway. First of all, let's get it right. The bill is going to the House Assembly on December 11th. The BIU and PPSU joint press conference was on December 10th. They had no intention of coming back to us. And that's why I think it's disingenuous of the Premier to even try to brush over that they were having consultations. Well, if we had consultation, you agreed to come back to us before they find the bill then, and you should have came back to us. Don't smooth it over by trying to defend the minister not coming back to us. They have to come back to us by saying that overall they had meetings. You're not being genuine to the general public by doing that shit. You're really not.
In reference to that,
Sure.
Mr. Hayward this week gave an explanation as to the stumbling block about him, according to the BIU, he didn't get back to you before tabling the bill. This week he said that he did in actual fact get back to you through Mr. Derek Burgess, government MP and former BIU president. Mr. Burgess was acting as a go-between between the union and the government. He approached Mr. Hayward with some suggestions, and Mr. Hayward replied in an email believing that would get back to you. Do you think that's a plausible explanation? Or?
No, it's not. No way. First of all, this issue we're going to know. I gave the media examples where we had a situation with the bus division of the BIU who actually dawned to us for 3 days, and the minister got involved, and I called the minister on his cell phone, his first cell phone, and then at 10 minutes later, I called him back on the second cell phone. I called the Premier at 4:45 that day, 10 to 4, and I said to him, Premier, I reached out to your minister. I need for him to give me a call back because this situation needs to be sorted out. And to date, the minister has not called. So look, you can't make this stuff up. How come no member of the media has asked the minister, why have you not reached out? If the president of the BIU called you, how come you didn't reach out to him? Now y'all telling me no, because you're a third party to communicate between him and myself. If that's the kind of relationship the minister wants, then look, I've already made it clear. Even though we've asked for the Premier to resign, we've asked for the minister to resign, we really don't want them to resign, but if it's going to behave like that, maybe he should resign.
The Premier has reached out to you again in today's paper with an interview with the Royal Gazette yesterday. He has said he's perfectly willing and hopeful for a meeting with you. So he's put that out there. do you accept that and?
I'm
will
not
you,
accepting an invitation to come to the table to the meeting. If the Premier wants to invite the BIU to the table, the right thing to do, if he wants to send an email, he wants to send a letter, that's fine, he can do that. Today, and I'm hoping to get it to the Premier sometime this afternoon, we have a letter prepared for the Premier to give him a letter, and that letter also has in there that the BIU, in the interest of the country, in the interest of the people of Bermuda, will ask him for the parties to come back to the table to resolve this issue.
So you're sending that out this afternoon?
It will go to the Premier sometime this afternoon, that's correct.
One final question, Mr. Phillip. The Premier has called for cool heads to prevail. Do you think that the union's been acting with a cool head over this?
Union's been acting with a cool head, okay. So, we have December 10th, 2020. We are now at September, September. So, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, 8 months. We've had dialogue upon dialogue upon dialogue. The minister has made it crystal clear. It's told you, I don't know how many, or told the media, how many times? The government will make no amendments to this act. The government will make no amendments to this act. The World Gazette advocate told the government, don't back down, and the government's not backing down. And you want me to now all of a sudden believe that it's all the union's fault because the way how we're acting? If this was a United Community Party government or a big government, we'd have been in the streets months ago. We'd have been in the streets marching. So no, I don't accept it. I don't.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Mr. Furwick,
Sure.
just so I understand your response to Rye's question, if the ILO said that people who have only paying 50% have a right to vote, you're saying the BIU saying they feel like that's unjust and they will not accept that?
Well, I'm saying that the BIU will give consideration to that because certainly, how long ago was that done? Was it done a year ago? Was it done 10 years ago? The Premier says that he agrees with the President of the BIU's position on, one ballot for decertification is one ballot too many. I've given you examples in the past where when we talked about the US of A, when we talked about Canada, we had the National Labor Relations Board that conducts ballots for decertification. And let's just use the one for 2020, which is the most recent one, right? They had 211 petitions, what they call them decertification ballots. So they actually had 95 of them. The union 143, and they lost 64. So the unions are losing more than winning. And the government is using the US as the example. So if the ILO, and I wasn't sure, if the ILO start using data and looked at, non-union members now look like they're actually, the vote by them voting in this process is actually causing unions to lose bargaining units. I'm going to sure the ILO would take another look at that because the ILO has always been firm reason as far as making sure they protect the rights of organized labor. This is the organized labor we're talking about. So as a result of that, and as I said, I will be very shocked if that comes back and says, well, even if they give 50%, they should have a right to vote in a ballot for decertification. I'll be very surprised. I really will.
My last question, Monday's Labor Day, what plans does the union have to celebrate that?
No, let's just be clear because, no matter how many times we tell the media, but we understand that, you have a question that needs to be answered. Joint Labor Day Organized Committee is the people that normally organize Labor Day, and that's made up of the BIU, BPSU, Teachers Union, all the unions, and also a couple of employers. They arrange Labor Day activities for Labor Day. Certainly the BIU is involved in Labor Day because it's here in Union Square. We always looked at as the one that controls everything. But we said this from Labor Day to Labor Day, that Labor Day is for the unions, it's not just the BIU's Labor Day. I know that, I believe that, I don't think that a permit has been given for the march to take place. I also understand that the race, Swans Running Club, the race for Labor Day has been moved from Union Square, I think down to Bernard Park. That's my information. And that's because the corporation, I don't want to charge them some money for the race. So it's very, very interesting that, we have Labor Day and we have this issue right in front of us for Labor Day, and it needs to be resolved. And BIU is more than willing to come to the table to resolve this impasse between government and ourselves.
So at the moment, it's just in limbo.
At the moment, yeah, I think it's just in limbo. Today's Friday. I would have thought that, you know, some kind of communication would have went to the media by now to let you know that the events for Monday is off. So my understanding is that the General Secretary of Bermuda Trade and Commerce should be sending something out to let you know what's going to happen with Labor Day on Monday.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.